You talk to him more than anybody else have lately, and you could be honest.
Serve 4 more years.
You don't think you can serve 4 more years? All right.
Hey, remember George Stephanopoulos? George Stephanopoulos is a journalist over there at ABC News. He's the anchor for Good Morning America. You get to wake up and have coffee with him because he's smiling. He has a full head of hair. And I'm a little jealous of the hair, but and the paycheck. But other than that, George Stephanopoulos is just quite a guy, isn't he? He's the one who conducted the interview to try to clean up the mess that is the Joe Biden presidency. Well, George Stephanopoulos was walking down the streets of Manhattan when a dude with a camera phone that was set on record stopped him and asked him a question. Stephanopoulos did not know that the camera phone was recording, and here's what happened.
Hey, how you doing? Good. What do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? You talk to him more than anybody else have lately, and you could be honest.
Serve 4 more years.
You don't think you can serve 4 more years? All right. That's an answer.
There you go. TMZ gets the video, and you saw the answer there. I don't think he can serve 4 more years, is what George Stephanopoulos said. He told the truth. He delivered his opinion, and it's a pretty well-informed opinion, as the TMZ dude just sorted out there, because he's probably spent more time with Joe Biden outside of the Biden family and inner White House staff than any living human being in the last 10 days. And George Stephanopoulos, based on his personal assessment of Joe Biden's mental and physical health, thinks that Joe Biden cannot serve 4 more years. George Stephanopoulos told the truth, and he got into big trouble. You see, over at ABC News, they don't like their journalists telling the truth. They don't like them actually delivering facts or their opinion on things. I mean, when that opinion harms Democrats. See, because ABC News, as we know from the hiring and promotion of George Stephanopoulos, as well as the production of The View every single day, ABC News is not in the business of delivering news. ABC News is in the business of helping prop up the Democratic Party and the liberal apparatchik machine that keeps Disney, the owner of ABC News, very wealthy. So George Stephanopoulos was forced to apologize. Sort of. I love how newspapers do this all the time. You can see this as the headline from Variety. ABC News' George Stephanopoulos apologizes for remark on Biden's White House chances. And as you see from this very handsome man's commentary, did he, though? I mean, did he really apologize? This happens all the time on the left. When someone like George Stephanopoulos or Joe Biden or Barack Obama, when they issue a statement after they've gotten into trouble for something they said, without actually having to say, I'm sorry, they're granted this blessing of apology. Oh, he apologized without actually apologizing. Here's what George Stephanopoulos actually said. Earlier today, I responded to a question from a passerby. I shouldn't have. That's all he said. I shouldn't have done that. That's not an apology. That's an acknowledgement that you're a buffoon. An apology is, I did something wrong. I shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry for doing it. And by the way, if you really want to have an appropriate apology, you should also issue some sort of reparation on how you will make atonement for the wrong thing that you did. That's a real apology. I'm sorry I did this. Let me make it up to you. I'm sorry I did this. Let me step down from my position as the anchor of Good Morning America and This Week on ABC News. Let me fix the problem by removing myself from the political conversation every day in America. No, he didn't do any of that. And he didn't even say, I'm sorry. As you can see, ABC News also put out a statement saying George expressed his own point of view and not the position of ABC News, according to the Disney-owned news unit. Thank you, Variety. It's funny. I don't have any problem with George Stephanopoulos delivering this opinion. My problem is that he did it on the sidewalk thinking that nobody was going to notice. He was just being honest and unguarded with somebody he thought wasn't taping him. If he had known he was being taped, he would have never given that answer. But that's the problem, you see. George Stephanopoulos was up close and personal with Joe Biden and was able to not just conduct that interview with him, but he got to see everything. He got to see how Joe Biden entered the room, exited the room. He saw what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. He was able to make a great assessment of the capabilities of Joe Biden. And in his mind, Joe Biden is incapable of serving for 4 years. That's important for us to know, isn't it? You see, the difference between what we do here and some of the other news and opinion media that you probably love to consume is that we don't try to lie to you. We don't try to tell you that we're impartial and we don't have an opinion on that. We're just here to deliver facts. No, of course, we're human beings. We're not robots. We know George Stephanopoulos has an opinion. The problem with George Stephanopoulos is he pretends that he doesn't have an opinion when it comes to Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or any other Democrat that he is charged with propping up and making look good. But boy, he can't hold back when it comes to having an opinion when it hurts Donald Trump or hurts Republicans or hurts conservatives. There he has free reign. But he'll still say he's not expressing an opinion. He'll just say, oh, no, listen, climate change is real. That's just a fact. That's not an opinion. Or Democrats don't want to kill babies in the womb right up until the moment of birth. I'm not expressing an opinion. That's not a political statement. That's just the fact. See, he lies and expresses opinions. But because he's got this veneer of unbiased journalist, you're supposed to take it as fact. I'll give you one other example. If George Stephanopoulos were overseas interviewing Vladimir Putin, and he witnessed some kind of mental or physical frailty or instability or compromise in some way that would suggest that Vladimir Putin is incapable or is in some way being propped up by people around him, do you think George Stephanopoulos would report that to his viewers? Do you think he would come back into studio and say, listen, we conducted this interview, and I want to tell you from my perspective, from my point of view, Vladimir Putin is mentally incapable right now. Vladimir Putin is compromised. Vladimir Putin is being propped up by people around him. Of course he would, because that's part of the story. George Stephanopoulos just witnessed exactly that with Joe Biden. He conducted an interview of Joe Biden after that disastrous Titanic of a debate. He witnessed things that leads him to believe that Joe Biden is incapable of serving his term that he's trying to get in the election this November, and he has kept his mouth shut and not said a damn thing to you about it. Why? Ask yourself why. And as soon as you answer it, well, you know exactly who George Stephanopoulos is. Now, people are very concerned, Democrats, I should say, are very concerned that Joe Biden is losing support in Washington, D.C. and in other political circles right now. But he should be more concerned about losing people in the media and pop culture. Not only has he just lost support from George Stephanopoulos through that statement, but even more importantly, there's another George that has come out to say that Joe Biden should not be president. A big George, a major George. You've never had to deal with a George like this. I'm talking about George Clooney.
And this is extraordinary. Just a few minutes ago, George Clooney has posted an op-ed in the New York Times. I'm going to read a line from it. He says, I love Joe Biden as a senator, as a vice president and president. I consider him a friend and I believe in him, believe in his character, believe in his morals. But he goes on to say he thinks that they need a new presidential nominee. Wow. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, President Biden raced back from Europe to get to Los Angeles for a George Clooney hosted fundraiser where Barack Obama was also there. Bill Clinton was there. Mm-hmm. George Clooney is now saying that after he watched the debate, he wants a new top of the ticket that is going to sting here at the White House and also in Wilmington. Sandra.
Another bit.
There you go. And that's true. As Peter Ducey just said, we'll share it with you. Here's the headline in the New York Times. George Clooney, I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee. And I want to reiterate, it's so important that you recognize this, that all of these people who saw the president at the debate so obviously physically and mentally diminished and incapable of conducting a 90-minute conversation with multiple breaks. And what was his job? For 90 minutes, he's standing at a podium talking about himself, talking about his record, talking about policies and what he wants to do. And he couldn't even do that. And all of these people who are finally crawling out of the woodwork saying, yeah, we got to do something about this. It's all about one thing. It's not about, it's about November. It's about whether he should be on the ticket because they're terrified that he's going to lose to Donald Trump. I mean, terrified about losing to Donald Trump. How about terrified that he's got the nuclear codes right now? How about terrified that he enters the Oval Office every day and assumes the role of president? That should terrify you. But these hacks only care about winning an election or stopping Donald Trump, stopping you. In his op-ed, he said something fascinating. As you just heard from Peter Ducey, George Clooney hosted that fundraiser in Los Angeles, and he said, the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. In other words, George Clooney saw 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser in Los Angeles exactly what we saw 2 weeks ago at the debate. But George Clooney said nothing about it. George Clooney was happy to raise $15 million for Joe Biden, seeing him in his diminished state, seeing him with his brain malfunctioning. He was fine, and he wouldn't have said a damn thing about it if the world hadn't seen it as well on the debate stage, right? Now, you remember this fundraiser. There he is being held up by Julia Roberts, by the way, and George Clooney. There's Barack Obama. You remember this fundraiser, don't you? If you're having trouble remembering, let me remind you with this video. This was the moment at the fundraiser when somebody out in the audience took video of the very end as Joe Biden was, waving to the crowd. And then you'll remember he freezes right there. He's frozen. He's rigid. He can't move. Obama notices it, pulls him by the hand, and then leads him off stage. You remember this, don't you? You must remember that. Now, that was the fundraiser that George Clooney was at. That is the fundraiser that George Clooney now says, quoting, the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010, and he wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. And there he is, frozen on stage with Barack Obama snapping him out of it and leading him off stage. Now, I bring this up because when we presented this video to you, the day after it happened, we were accused by the White House and by the New York Times and by the Washington Post and by CNN, Jake Tapper, and MSNBC and Rachel Maddow, and by all of the networks. We were accused of presenting to you a cheap fake. We were accused of manipulating the truth. We were accused of presenting this video to you, telling you that clearly the president, there's something wrong with him mentally and physically. We were called liars. We were called propagandists. We were called a right-wing noise machine that was lying to you. And yet George Clooney, an artist, an actor, a truth teller, George Clooney knew. He was there. And he allowed all of us to be slandered. Where was George Clooney stepping up and saying, listen, I may not like conservative media, but they're not lying. There's something wrong with Joe Biden. I saw it myself. No. Nowhere to be seen. But it was George Clooney the man who hosted that fundraiser and raised $15 million for Joe Biden, seeing him in his diminished state, who kept his mouth shut and waited until now, 12 days after the debate, to finally say, yeah, he's got to go. And why does he have to go? Not because he's a danger to our country, a danger to our troops, a liability conducting world affairs. He's hosting a NATO summit right now. No, none of that matters. The reason George Clooney says Joe Biden's got to go is because he's afraid of Donald Trump winning in November. No matter how much you hate the elites in the media like George Stephanopoulos or the elites in Hollywood like George Clooney, no matter how much you hate them, it's not nearly enough. Not even close to enough.